What is good, everybody? Welcome to the Instant Reaction Podcast here on the Gold Standard Podcast Network. I am Rob Stats Guerrera. He is Levin Black. And Levin, ugly night for the 49ers all around. Ravens get the 33-19 victory. Nothing was good about tonight. Flat out, nothing. Quarterback play, offensive line play, injuries, just a complete disaster for San Francisco.
Yeah, it was off from the very start. Like, the game plan offensively was not the correct game plan at all. It doesn't make any sense to me. Like, we talked about it in our preview that you had a defense that's number one in the league in terms of yards allowed per pass play, but middle of the pack in yards per run play, and they just gave up a bunch of yards to Trent Williams of the Rams running the ball, yet they came out not only passing, but like motioning McCaffrey out to make it easy to know that they're going to be passing. You know, not even trying to disguise anything. I feel like, I don't know what Kyle saw in his game prep, but he saw something that made him think, if I move McCaffrey from the backfield and then line him out wide, it won't have an answer, because he did it so many times in this game.
It was frustrating at times. You wanted them to run the ball a little more, but the bottom line is you could complain about the running, but this loss falls squarely on the shoulders of one man, and that is Brock Purdy. And we will get to that in a minute. But before we do, I just want to take 1 second to tell everybody about our new YouTube channel partner here, Community Tree Services, LLC. They are friends of the show. We are so pleased and privileged to have them with us. They do tree trimming, land clearing, hazard tree removal, home fire hardening, and debris removal from the Central Coast up to the Bay Area. Estimates are free. Call 831-763-2391 or email estimating@cts831.com now to schedule your appointment. If you mention you're a Niner fan, which you may not want to do at this point, but you get $200 off. If you are a Seahawks, Cowboys, Eagles, or dare I say Ravens fan, you will get a $200 increase to your quote. So don't do that. Community Tree Service is licensed by the California State License Board, license number 1100816. As I was saying, this loss falls squarely on the shoulders of Brock Purdy. He threw 4 interceptions. And look, you can sit there and say balls were tipped, his arm was hit. I'm grading him on the same curve I graded Jimmy Garoppolo and every other 49ers quarterback. You threw 4 picks. That's on you, and that's why they lost.
I think it is a shared blame game. Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy share this equally. The game plan was not. Yes, some of those interceptions were horrendously bad luck, but Purdy still didn't have a good game. Even when he wasn't throwing interceptions, he had a lot of throws that were just not accurate, that just weren't there. You know, he still had some of his good throws, but it was a easily the worst game Purdy has had.
Yeah.
And he had bad luck on top of it, making it horrendous. And the game plan was just, they weren't set up for success in this game.
Well,
they were not going to succeed.
They were moving the ball just fine, though. They were kicking the hell out of them in the first half. They weren't running it, but they were moving the ball. Brock was turning it over.
He was like 6 of 12. Even if you take away the turnovers, he still wasn't getting a lot of those short throws that just weren't there. Like I said, they kept trying to motion and move McCaffrey out wide. And I feel like, okay, I don't know if you're trying to like make the defense tip their hand or what you're doing here, but all it's doing is allowing the defense to know exactly what's coming. All right, they're in shotgun and there's nobody else in the backfield. Here comes a pass. What are you doing? The Rams found success and put up over 30 points against the Ravens just a handful of weeks ago by running the ball and then play actioning off of it.
The 49ers had 231 yards at halftime, and they were averaging 8.6 yards per play. It might not have looked pretty, and there were it was choppy. I agree with you. Like, there were like a lot of crap plays and then a huge play and then some. It was choppy. I definitely agree. But they were moving the football in the game. What happened is something that you pointed out. The 49ers got 49ers. In the third quarter, when the Niners usually pull away from everybody, the Ravens absolutely pulled away. This was a 4-point game at halftime. Yeah.
And scored 17.
Right. And the 49ers got the ball back to start the second half. And yet less than 4 minutes in, the 49ers were down 30-12 in the third quarter. It absolutely snowballed away from them in the second half.
I don't know what was said at halftime. Never say it again. Because when they came out, the offense was that first series, it was half-assing it. They then punted the ball. The defense gets the ball. They get scored on almost instantly. They came out flat-footed. The next possession was another terrible offensive possession, and they punt the ball, and there's a penalty after a long return on punt coverage.
Wisnowski got the hit.
And then they allow another very quick touchdown, and then on the return, Debo slips and falls. It's like, what was said at halftime for all three facets of the game to suddenly be terrible and come out with no energy? Like, there was no energy coming out of halftime.
It was the complete opposite of what we have seen from the 49ers. And it's unfortunate, but you know what? Like, nights like this happen. And I want to get to everybody's super chat in a minute. And thank you, everybody. We appreciate all the donations, and I will. But I just want to say this. Don't freak out. This week is going to suck. You're going to have to eat a shit burger this week. You will just are. Brace yourself for it. The Brock Purdy sucks takes are coming this week. Though I was seeing a bunch of 49ers are not really good takes on Twitter during the game.
Mm-hmm.
You're just going to have to sit and eat all of it because they got destroyed in this game. We were clowning on Dallas and Philly and all that, and they're going to do that to us this week. And that you just have to take it. But two things can be true. The 49ers could have got destroyed.
You got to take it from other fans. Fine, whatever. But Michael Parsons, shut the hell up. Well, he was already on Twitter going at the 49ers. It's like, dude, you got beat. You allowed 42 points against this offense.
Well, and they lost to Miami this week. So,
like, Dallas players should not be talking about the 49ers. Eagles players should not be talking about the 49ers. Like, you got embarrassed on the field against this team, so just shut up and sit down.
Yes, and the 49ers were terrible tonight. Terrible. Not good in any phase. Terrible, terrible, terrible. They're still the best team in the NFC. They still have a quarterback that was in the MVP conversation before tonight. He's not going to be anymore, but he was still there. They still control their destiny for the number one seed. They win the last two games. They're the number one seed. There's nothing anybody else can do about it. So, yes, this week is going to stink, but we have had a lot of good weeks here in 49er land, and we could still have everything we want going into the playoffs. So just a little perspective is all I'm asking for.
So just real quick, because I've seen a couple of people say it, I'm traveling. I'm in a hotel. So that's where my decorations went. But I will say, even with that, I still have more decorations than Vish.
That's true. Okay, let's get to a bunch of super chats here because people have been waiting, and we really appreciate it. Warlock says, let's start the excuses. It's one game. It's against the AFC. Wait till the playoffs start. At least they made it to the Super Bowl. There's always next year. Have some integrity and tell the truth. Here's the truth. The 49ers lost for the first time in 6 games. They still have the best record in the NFC. Brock Purdy had a bad game, but has still been kicking ass. That is the truth. It is one loss, and it's a bad loss. I get it. I understand your pain, but let's just take a step back and realize where we are right now. I think two things can be true, but let's not just abandon ship because the 49ers played a bad game against a good team.
I think perspective will probably come. It's just not going to come easily right now. Wednesday, Thursday, as the conversation changes and goes to Washington, that's when the perspective will come that, hey, they're still atop the NFC. They still have a number one seed. Right now, it still hurts. And speaking of hurting, that's the big worry. Like, but one game, sure. You can lose one game. You can get blown out. Somebody pointed out on Twitter that the 94 49ers lost 40-8 to the Eagles. But the injuries?
Well, that's
injuries, yeah. Like the 49ers might be calling up Joe Staley to try to get him to come out of retirement or something like
cluster injuries. You had Trent Williams, groin injury, Jalen Moore, head injury. You had who was it? They were down to their last friggin' offensive lineman. I'm trying to look at I can't even remember who was in the game. Burford was at tackle.
It started with a B. It was like Burtz or something like that. He's been in the league like 5 years, but he's new to the team. So
was that his name?
Yeah. Sounds right.
If I don't know his name, you know that it was bad. It was Colt McKivitz at left tackle, Aaron Banks, who then later got hurt, Jake Brendo at center, John Feliciano, and Spencer Burford. And it got worse than that from there because, like we said, Banks went down. So the cluster injuries are a real thing, and that's scary. Larkin says, brutal, quite brutal indeed. How are we feeling about Brock? He had a bad game, clearly. But you know what? This was also his 24th career game. He got out flummoxed. He was out coached tonight. Like, he was confused, is what I want to say, by the defense. He was confused, and that's going to happen. He's still a young player. Guys, just every quarterback has bad games. Brady had 6 games with 4 interceptions. Okay. Peyton Manning had 6 games with 4 interceptions, and Peyton Manning had a 6 interception game. Okay. Montana had a 4 interception game. Marino had 2 4 interception games and 2 5 interception games.
Favre had a 6 interception game in the playoffs.
Right. Drew Brees had 2 4 interception games and a 5 interception games. This happens to everyone. Just take a deep breath. Yes, he was bad tonight. It only counts as 1 loss, whether he throws 4 picks, 8 picks, 12 picks. It's okay. He can recover next week against Washington. It's fine.
So 2 things I want to make, points I want to make on Purdy. One, I think he was certainly taking the Ravens for granted, so to speak. I don't know how you want to put it, but he wasn't respecting the Ravens. I think he was treating this like it was a Cardinals defense or some other defense, and he was taking some risky throws that against this defense you can't get away with. And I think he will probably make that adjustment, knowing how smart he is. He will make that adjustment next time. That, this is a defense you can't throw late on. This is a defense you can't try to force it in a one-on-one because the ball is probably going to get batted. But then I also feel like in this game, this type of defense, we talked about it this week. They disguise everything. They confuse everyone.
Yes.
This is a defense that was capable of confusing any quarterback in the league. So Purdy seeing it for the first time, I'm not exactly shocked that he was confused by it. The 4 interceptions are shocking, but as we said, this was a lot of bad luck combined with bad play. Like, this was not a 4 interception bad game. It ends up being there. I get it. But this was more like, I would say 2 interceptions, maybe 3 is how he played. This wasn't like he was so god-awful. There was no positives, nothing. It was, he played bad. He was confused by some things.
Yes.
And then every single bounce went against the 49ers.
It was just a bad game. Like, it's okay to say. The other team did a good job. The Ravens did a good job. They outplayed the 49ers tonight. That is true. 100%. Antonio says, I don't even know what to say. Ugly play calling, ugly quarterback play, ugly tackling, and ugly O-line play. While the game sucked, I think the team will bounce back. I think that's my takeaway as well. I will say this. Other than a couple of big plays to Kittle, the 49ers did not gain the yards after catch that they usually do. The Ravens did an excellent job of tackling. There were a couple plays that could have broken big where the Ravens just hung on and made the tackle or slowed the guy down so that other people could come. Credit the Ravens. The Ravens are a great team. They played great. They earned it. They did right longer is what the 49ers like to say.
I know we have some super chats to get to, but
yes,
you brought up tackling.
Mm-hmm.
I think there needs to be a conversation had about Fred Warner in the open field tackling. I don't know why he can't adjust. He never wraps up. He dives every single time rather than just running through the player. And so it ends up being he's got to bring him down with his arm. And it's like Bosa said, he comes in like a missile. The problem is he comes in like a missile and only goes for the blowing it up. You know, it's like sometimes you don't need to be the missile. You just need to wrap it up and slow the guy down. He never does. His open field tackling is holding him back. Like, that's, if he made every tackle that he should in the open field, he would probably be in the defensive player of the year conversation. But he is, or has been, I should say, this season, abnormally terrible in tackling.
Well, at the list of 49ers problems, 54 is way down there. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying.
I don't necessarily agree, because right now this defense has a major tackling problem, and it starts with him.
Andre Garibay says Kyle started the game calling stupid plays. The O-line got exposed early and Purdy looked like crap. 4 interceptions against a guy like Lamar will get you beat. Lamar creates with his legs and gets guys open. Absolutely. Lamar created with his legs. Again, I don't think the offense was as bad as you people think. They were moving the ball. Brock was throwing picks. That's what would hurt. The first drive of the game, 5 plays, 74 yards. They go right down the field. What happened? At the 15-yard line, Brock throws a pick. That's not Kyle calling stupid plays. That's Brock making a bad play. I put the
So why not run the ball? Because they were running the ball easily.
If Kyle
Christian McCaffrey had 5 carries halfway through the second quarter. He was averaging 9 yards a carry in the third quarter.
Okay.
Yet he only had like 9 carries. Run the ball. It was not out of control yet. It was not a double-digit deficit. They majority of that time at that point.
Were you complaining before Brock threw the interception?
I was complaining about them not running. I posted right away saying I was shocked that they were coming out passing.
But it was working, so why do you care? That's what I just think the run the ball people are saying.
Is it working if the guy, like I understand maybe after the first interception saying, all right, we're going to stay with it because it was working. After the second one, run the damn ball.
Well, don't forget.
Until they prove they can stop it.
They got a field goal on their second drive, 10 plays, 52 yards. Again, right down the field, no problem. Then the Ravens kicked the field goal, and then the Niners threw the pick. But they were moving the ball down the field that time. They hit Kittle for 20 on first down. Second down, McCaffrey ran it for 3 yards. Then on 2nd and 7, Purdy hits Deebo Samuel for 15 yards and a first down. Then on the next first down, the next play, Brock throws the pick. I don't think the problem was that the pass plays weren't working. The quarterback was throwing it to the other team.
All the more reason to run the ball.
But what?
Like, if they can't stop the run, why are you going with the more risky thing?
Of course, you could say after the fact they should have run the ball, but you could say that after every.
I said it 3 days ago to you when we talked about pregame, what I expected.
All I'm saying is if Kyle's throwing the ball and it's working, why would you stop?
It wasn't working.
It was.
If your quarterback is off and
it was working.
Just because they're getting a chunk play doesn't mean it's working overall. Like I said, he was only completing 50% of his passes before the second interception. It wasn't like they were consistently moving the ball. It was, all right, here's 25 yards or here's an incompletion. Like
I said, it was choppy, but they were going down the field. Again, I'm not going to bang on him. I thought McCaffrey had 91 yards at halftime. So like clearly they were giving him the ball some on one of the touchdown drives. He had 65 of the 67 total yards. Which is absurd.
Because he broke a long run down the sideline.
Yeah, good. That's okay, but the long passes don't count, but only the long runs count. I think that take is
the long passes count, but so do the interceptions. That's why you stick with the thing that's not causing the turnovers until the other team proves they can stop it. Because if you look at what another team that runs a very similar offense, they couldn't stop them running either. And they put up 31 points on this Ravens defense.
Yeah, they didn't throw interceptions. They passed in the game too. I think that we're looking back through a different lens. Let's get to some super chats. Scott, YouTube channel member, says, I didn't understand Kyle's game plan. We should have ran more. All I can say about our defense is thank God there's only one Lamar. I thought the defense kept them in the game. I mean, God, going into halftime, they had thrown 3 interceptions and they were only down 4 points. The defense did an incredible job in this game. They forced the safety. Now, also part of that was the ref falling down, which, by the way, did you see the video of the ref's face as he realizes he's falling down in the end zone in the middle of the play? He looks miserable in the end zone.
I would say half that blame is for Lamar, though. He literally turned around and ran straight backwards right to where the ref is always going to be. It's like the ref can't get out of your way that fast. Why are you turning around and running? That ball was hiked on the 12-yard line, and within a second and a half, he was in the end zone.
He got pressure early. Bosa was there, Warner was there, and then Chase Young came in at the end to force the safety. By the way, if you want to become a YouTube channel member, please do. It's less than $3 a month. You get custom emojis, membership badges, priority comment response. And if you want to pay $4 a month, you get early access to 49ers in 5, our daily news update that comes out every weekday morning. You'll get that as soon as it's done. You won't have to wait till the following day. OB149, before we panic, we started off strong. First pick by Brock was bad, but the other 3 were a bit unlucky. But concerned that Kyle Shanahan can't come back when down. Number 8 had a few tips, but they landed on the ground. But overall, bad. They had a chance. They came out in the third quarter. You score a touchdown there, you are in the lead. You clearly, as bad as they played in the first half, they had the chance there to start the second half, and it just absolutely got away. They go 3 and out to start the second half. They gain 0 yards on the possession, and the Ravens get the ball, touchdown immediately, which is like infuriating. And that was the drive, by the way, where Mitch Wishnowsky got the penalty. So you set the Ravens up. That drive started at the Niners' 44-yard line. So when you had a chance to take the lead, not only do you not do that, you have a short punt, you give up a long return, and you get a flag to set the Ravens up. And 3 plays later, they scored a touchdown. It was 23-12. You're still in it, except what happened on the next play? Brock Purdy, interception. Then the Ravens scored a touchdown after that, and then the game was over.
Yeah, game was over at that point. I do want to touch on the one thing that he's hinting at there because they brought it up on the broadcast. Kyle Shanahan is now, I want to say 0-38.
Yes, 0-38.
When his team trails by 8 or more. Like that's a long enough history.
It doesn't bother me.
To not be just nothing. Like there is something inherent to Kyle Shanahan. I don't know if it's he's stubborn and he doesn't change things or what it is. It doesn't matter. You can't just say, well, he hasn't had good quarterbacks. As that stat showed on the broadcast, the 49ers are the only team in the NFL since 2017 to not have come back from 8+ down in any game. So
that's the weird part.
It's not just play.
Right. It's not just, oh, they don't have a good record in that situation. It's that they don't have a single one and everybody else does.
Right.
That's good teams, bad teams,
right.
Whatever.
It doesn't help the quarterbacks they've had.
Yeah.
But there is something to Kyle Shanahan as well to this.
It doesn't bother me that much. Like Kurt Benkert is online saying, oh, the Niners offense isn't built to come from behind. That makes no sense. The Niners offense can score on literally any play at any time, whether it's a 10-yard pass, a 2-yard pass, or a 50-yard pass. How are they not built to come from behind? That's the exact offense you want when you're down. So
yeah, the most efficient passing offense in the league is not built to come back from being down. Yeah.
They haven't done it, and that's fair. But the idea that they're not built to come from behind doesn't hold any water with me. Wetbridge says every pick in the next draft should be spent on offensive linemen. I agree. I think they will invest there. Trigga says you shouldn't overreact. Yes, but this game definitely changed my confidence level of the team. If they get to the Super Bowl, don't want to make it and lose again. We'll get there. Take it one step at a time. Yes, they have not played well against the AFC this year, but you know what? They had the best team in 2012 and didn't win the Super Bowl. They had the best team in 2019 and didn't win the Super Bowl. It's one game. Anything can happen in one game. So don't freak out because it's one loss. I get it. It's bad, but take a deep breath. I'm begging you, please.
Just right the ship, get the first seed, and then you'll be good because you'll get that rest. And I think the defense definitely needs some rest right now.
I agree. 100%. Obi-Wan 49 came so close to number 8 being down, but his ability to extend plays killed us on defense. Yes, it did. On top of a good field position perspective, 1 yard away from making it a 7-point game despite the circumstances. That's true. If Darnold scored at the end there in the fourth quarter, like for as bad as they played, it would have been a 1-score game, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, it could have been a 1-score game if they scored quick enough. Like say Christian McCaffrey scored that rushing touchdown. It would have been a 1-score game with about 2:05 left, and they had all 3 timeouts. So I think the plan was to kick it off because onside kicks they've been kind of written out with the rules that they've made. It's near impossible. So I think they would have kicked off at that point and tried to get a 3-and-out, and they would have had the 2-minute warning and 3 timeouts to be able to get the ball back. They would have had a chance, but with the way they had played, I didn't have any hope.
No, neither did I. And thank God, because if they had scored, then it would have been like, why isn't he putting Purdy back in the game? It would have been a whole thing. So, Warlock, I want to address this because he was arguing with me on Twitter, and I appreciate the donation. Thank you very much. You keep saying 2 things can be true. They lose, and they're still number 1 in the NFC. Since when has being the best team in the NFC become the goal? I thought the goal was winning the Super Bowl, not the NFC. It is. But guess what? You can't get to the Super Bowl unless you're the best team in your conference. And when you get to the Super Bowl, it's a 1-game matchup. Anything can happen. If the 49ers won and crushed the Ravens today 100-0, they could still lose to the Ravens in the Super Bowl. One has nothing to do with the other. So them winning this game tonight does not mean, oh, they're the best team in the NFL. They're guaranteed to win the Super Bowl. So, yeah, you would have liked to have won it. But the idea that, oh, well, the Niners are not built to be a championship team because they lost to the Ravens tonight, those two things don't compute.
Yeah, if the 2007 Giants played the Patriots
Right.
9 more times, they would lose the next 9.
Probably.
They would lose to that Patriots team 9 times out of 10, but that one time out of 10 happened to be the David miracle of a catch to get the 49ers when they played the Ravens in the Super Bowl. I think if they played 10 times, they probably win 7 of those. It is what it is. Get into the Super Bowl and deal with it. Like they can beat any of the teams in the AFC, even though they've been terrible against the AFC. You just never know where things are going to be when you get there.
1,000%. Exactly right. In one game, anything.
I bet they run the ball more if they play him again.
Who
just
knows?
saying.
Yeah, I know. But if Brock Purdy fumbles and they should have passed, or if Christian McCaffrey fumbles, they should have passed more, right? Andre says, besides Trent, the line gets punked against good defensive lines. Browns and Ravens punk these guys. It's a problem, but we can't change much now, and horrible tackling. I agree with the offensive line not being good. That's part of the reason why when they get behind, if they have to straight pass, if it's like a one-score game and they could still run and play action, that's okay. But their offensive line is not good at just straight drop back pass protecting. They're not built to be good in that situation, and they are not good at it.
It's the one failure that this front office has made. They've built a great roster. I would argue it's the most talented team in the league. But for whatever reason, they've said, we're not going to draft offensive line. We're not going to sign offensive line unless it's bargain barrel, also ran veterans. Like, just look at Feliciano. They weren't going to utilize him. He was forced to be utilized due to injuries. He's somebody that has starting experience in the NFL. And to me, he's clearly better than Burford.
Yeah.
Right? He is the starting guard on this team. Why aren't they taking more rolls of the dice on guys like that in free agency? I don't get their strategy with the offense. It's been their MO ever since they drafted McGlinchey. It was like they drafted McGlinchey. Hey, we used a top 10 pick on offensive line. We don't ever have to address the offensive line again.
Well, they did when they acquired Trent Williams, right? That's addressing.
I guess that came after, yeah.
And they've spent big in the past. They gave Weston Richburg a huge contract. Now, it didn't work out because he got hurt. But they invested in the offensive line with him. They went out and got Alex Mack. So, it's weird. Sometimes they do, but sometimes they don't. And you're right. When it was a clear need, you felt like they could have done more this offseason for sure. Nicholas Parra says, credit to the Ravens. They were the better team on all sides, and pass-happy Shanahan happened. 0-48 now when trailing by 8 or more in the third. We're a front-running team. The offensive line isn't built for that. Yeah, that doesn't I think this team is not going to be in a position where they're trailing by 8 or more going into the fourth quarter that often. So, I think that, just because they haven't done it yet doesn't mean they can't ever do it. That's another thing that is it disturbing that they haven't done it yet? Sure. But it doesn't mean that they can't do it next week, right? If they do it next week, what would people say? Oh, it's only against Washington, right? Doesn't count. So I just think they can't win for losing.
I mean, if they get down by 8 to 1, good Lord. I don't know if you saw, but Sam Howell was something I think he was 5 of 20 with 2 interceptions or 3 interceptions.
Yeah, he got benched.
Horrendous.
Again.
Yeah. That team, they were already bad, but they've clearly quit. They're in off-season mode already.
Good.
So there's no excuses next week, which means you go into the final week playing the Rams. You win, you get the number 1 seed.
Gonna be a fun one. Sinan says, Brock Purdy gave me Jimmy G vibes. Hate to be a German fan because it's almost 6 a.m. and I had to go to work now. Gonna be a fun shift. # still believing though. Brock he was under pressure and he just wasn't quite as sharp tonight as he usually was. The passes were a little off. That helped him get tipped. Ball got in the air. Kyle Williams made some plays. That's how it goes. It was not a fun night for sure, but I'm not rocked to my foundation. My bedrock opinions on the 49ers and their players this year have not changed because of this one game.
To me, it was, all right, first one, 100% on Purdy. Second one, 0% on Purdy. That's just bad luck to me. It's a screen that the guy gets to bat up, and it goes to the one player that was going to be in the area for the Ravens, right? The third one, I would say, yes, it's a bad throw, but it should not have been intercepted. It hit Kittle. But it got batted up in the air, bounced off his body right to the player. I'm not saying Kittle should have caught it. It was a bad throw. It was covered. It was never to be complete. It's a holy crap, I can't believe he made that type of interception. The fourth one, that one to me is also just, you got bad luck there. I hate to say it. Well, the fifth one is just Darnold being Darnold, and it's a fourth down. He's got to force it, right? But like, it's, if you look at the box score, you go, oh, bubble burst on Purdy. It's over. If you watch to the game, you go, yeah, it wasn't a good game. A game that should have been like 2 interceptions and nobody's panicking. But it was just horrendous luck that turned it into 4, right? That's how I fall.
Though I'll just point
it's a weird to say, I know, and I don't like saying, well, it wasn't really 4 interceptions, but having 3 passes, 3 interceptions, 1 where your arm gets hit as you're throwing, and 2 that get put into the air right to a defender. Having 3 of those in the same game, that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it was a kind of a fluky circumstance. I still put it on Brock. You threw 4 picks. You put the ball in harm's way enough to where that could happen. Again, I want to be fair. I want to grade him. If it was Jimmy, I would have crushed Jimmy Garoppolo. So I put the blame on Brock. I want to be as consistent.
If he was to be graded, it would be like a D-.
F. He's going to get an F in my grades tomorrow. JCG 1987 says, I take responsibility for the loss. Yeah, I'm sure he's going to be really upset about that too. Took a whiz after the game and noticed my 49ers wedding ring on the windowsill, the one I wore during the streak. Wait, first of all, did you not have your wedding ring on? So that's no good, JCG. You got to do what you got to do for the team. You're telling me you had the wedding ring off and they lost tonight? I think number 1 on the list to blame is JCG 1987. What are you doing?
Totally affects things, but I got to ask, like, how do you not know that, like, your ring's not on? I'm like, my ring off occasionally. Like, if I go outside and my plant, I take my ring off because I have to climb ladders sometimes and stuff, and it's a fall risk. You're not supposed to wear them. Could literally strip my finger down to the bone. So I take it off and I put it in my pocket. And I will say, yeah, I haven't gotten it back on immediately after my shift. At some point in the next few hours, I go and I go, wait, my hand doesn't feel right. Oh, that's right. My ring's in my pocket.
You think you would figure that out? Antonio says calling sprint outs every other play is bad play calling. Gerardo H says leaving the stadium wasted an amazing energy. Yeah, it seemed like it was a pretty cool vibe there, but hey, it's
hey,
tough,
at least
man.
you stuck to the end.
That's true. Obi-Wan says offense was able to move the ball. What's concerning when there's adversity in other aspects, snowballs, tackling, penalties, turnovers. Saw this in the 3-loss streak. Well, yes, I agree with you, Obi-Wan 49. I agree. Usually when a team loses, this is the stuff that happens, right? Bad penalties, turnovers. They're correlated, you know, like we see this is a common thing in losses. When you do these things and you make these mistakes, you don't win these games.
Yeah, let's talk about penalties were another bad aspect of this game. They were not only, it's not, not all penalties are created. These were really poorly timed as well as just really penalties. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't you gotta hold, they finally decided to call one because there's holding on every play. No, it's all right. I'm going to false start. Things are already, nosediving. I'm going to have a bounce by a freaking punter. Like, it was just undisciplined is the way I think you put this game. It was undisciplined offensively because of turnovers. It was undisciplined defensively because of all the missed tackles and picks.
Ugly. 10 penalties for 102 yards for the 49ers tonight. That you can't give Lamar Jackson and the Ravens offense 102. You can't give them more than a football field's worth of yards and turn the football over 5 times and expect to win. Matthew Rowley says, turned it off after the 3rd pick, a big spot and an underwhelming performance by Purdy and Shanahan. Can't wait to lose in the championship again. Matthew, I understand you're hurting, but one does not affect the other. whether the Niners won by 100 tonight or lost by 100 tonight. It doesn't affect what happens in the NFC Championship game or the Super Bowl if the 49ers happen to make it. They were on a 6-game losing streak. They've only lost 4 games all year long. They have the best record in the NFC. I get that tonight hurts. I get it. I'm hurting too. I wanted to win. This team drove me to drink tonight. I'm not celebrating drinking this beer. I'm drinking because they were hideously bad. But even with the loss, they still control their fate in the NFC playoffs. They can still get the bye. They still have all the tiebreakers. They have the tiebreaker over the Eagles. They have the tiebreaker over the Cowboys. They have the tiebreaker over the Lions. None of that has changed. So just keep that in mind when we have to eat this crap burger all week long, and we will, believe me.
The only going to linger from this game in my mind is whatever injuries. That's the lingering question. How they played tonight. Look, things will change. They looked like crap against the Bengals. They went into the bye week, and guess what? They came out looking like the best team the league has seen in the last decade. Like they came out just boat racing. Good teams. So can they turn it around? Absolutely. Will they? I have faith they will. But at the same time, I do think this team looks like a team that very much is tired and needs a break.
Yeah, I would agree. They need the bye week for sure, probably more than anybody else. Ray Lee says running the ball is the bread and butter of this team, and Christian McCaffrey was gashing them early on, average 6+ yards a carry. Jay says Kyle was in his own head today, not going for the tie and kicking a meaningless extra point tells me he was overthinking today. I agree with you, Jay. I said at the time they should have gone for 2. What the hell does kicking the extra point get you? You're still losing. You make the extra point, you miss the extra point. You're still losing. Go for 2. What happens if you don't get it? You're still losing. To me, it was dumb. Go for 2, but Kyle's going to Kyle. And that's not the reason they lost today. So, that's way, way, way down on my list of grievances.
I did some stat, and I've been wanting to bring it up, but it's just never kind of come into conversation over the last week and a half since I noticed it. Would you agree that Kyle has been a little more aggressive this season on 4th down?
Yes.
Do you know the 49ers are by far the lowest in the league in terms of attempts on 4th down?
Yes, they have 9, including tonight.
Yeah. By far the worst. I was shocked. I would have agreed he's been more aggressive, but having 8 through the first 14 weeks and now 9 through 15 weeks, then can't be that aggressive.
Well, I don't think they've needed to.
Well, that's true. They've been up in a lot of games, so you don't need to, but
Carlos M says, can you give us the pressure rate stats from tonight? I'm sorry, Carlos. I can't right now. I don't know that those are out yet.
Lots of it.
I haven't seen them, but yeah, Brock was under pressure a lot, and I didn't think Lamar was under pressure that much. JCG 1987, you traitor. I haven't forgotten about your ring fiasco, JCG. Notice how Levi's was still making noise until the last minute. Can't say the same about the Link or AT&T. Yeah, okay, great. Congratulations. Nicholas Parr says, no one will remember this if we win our last 2 games and make it to the Super Bowl and we face the Ravens again. LOL, I'll take it, but we must win the big game. Exactly right, Nicholas. 100%. They go on to win the Super Bowl, go on to get the number 1 seed. Everyone's going to say whatever. It's going to be like the Eagles game in 94 when the Niners got blown out and Steve Young got benched. That's what it's going to be. Everything is still there for the 49ers. It's all in front of them still, despite the loss.
I will disagree on one aspect. And of course, here I'm nitpicking. No one will remember if they make it to the Super Bowl and face the Ravens again. That's all anybody's going to bring up.
Well, you know what he meant, though. Yeah, you know what he meant.
You know how it's going to be, though, all week. Oh, the last time they played. Oh, can the 49ers actually beat them? Oh, I don't think the Niners are actually capable. The Ravens are a nightmare matchup for the 49ers. Blah, blah, blah.
Let's get into some nitty-gritty. Jason Verrett got inserted into this game over Ambry Thomas, who's been playing great, right? And yet they put Jason Verrett in the game. He gives up a touchdown catch. Kyle Shanahan said Ambry Thomas has a hamstring injury, which is partially why Verrett was in the slot later in the game. But Shanahan said the plan was to work Jason Verrett in the game regardless of how he's performed in practice. The plan was to work Verrett in the game regardless based on how he's performed in practice. Kyle, what the hell are we doing with Jason Verrett? My God, Ambry Thomas has done nothing but reward you all year long. Now, all of a sudden, you're going to put Jason Redden, who hasn't been playing for anybody all year, coming off another major injury? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, I kind of get what he's saying there. He's saying that basically Brett needed some game action. He was on a practice squad all year with, I think, Houston. And then he basically was a free agent for a couple of weeks. Now he's been on practice squad. He needed some game action. And I think they were prepping so that if there's an injury, it's not, all right, we're screwed here because we didn't get him any game action. However, I don't think it was necessarily a good time to do so.
Right. You don't do that against the Ravens in a big game.
Right. Exactly. It's like, all right, if an injury happens early next week, that's how the dice rolls. But at the end of next week, guess what? I'm going to give Verrett some time on the field.
Good news, maybe. Nick Wagner reports Trent Williams wanted to go back in the game, according to Kyle. Medical personnel advised against it. Williams will have an MRI on his injured groin on Tuesday to determine its severity. I feel like Trent Williams, he always gets banged up during the year. I always feel like he's banged up at the end of the year, too. A couple of years ago against the Rams, remember, he was banged up and he gutted it out and he said he shouldn't have played. That's a huge problem for the 49ers if Trent Williams is compromised in any way, because if he's compromised, their offensive line stinks. They're not going to be able to run the ball as well as they normally can. That's a scary injury. That is a huge injury to monitor this week.
Yeah, I think he's going to go back in this game, if I'm being honest, though, because he stayed in uniform. I don't think it was that serious of an injury. I think the way the game went is why he wasn't going back in. Time will tell, but I think a lot of how this game ended with the injuries was the way the game went. And I think you saw that because there was one interesting point that my initial reaction was, wow, he gave up. And then I thought about it. It's like, I don't really blame him. Kyle Shanahan could have called a timeout after Sam Darnold got sacked and try and have like a minute and 50 seconds. Instead, he let the clock run all the way down. And then there was the false start. And they said, San Francisco has elected to call a timeout. And he cusses out a ref.
He's like, no, I didn't.
To ensure the 10-second runoff happens instead of getting the timeout. So clearly Kyle's like, yeah, we have no onside kick and tying this game or any of that. I'm giving up. I want to go in the locker room because there's been too many injuries and I don't want to make anything worse.
Well, and I also think he thought, hey, if we score here, I need the 3 timeouts to stop the clock on defense to get the ball back. So he did not want to use a timeout on offense. Matthew Rowley says Purdy equals Romo, Shanahan equals Marty Schottenheimer. We are just trolling for outrage there, Matthew. First of all, I don't think Marty Schottenheimer ever even made a Super Bowl. So I don't know necessarily that you want to equate Marty Schottenheimer with Kyle Shanahan. So there you go. Romo and Purdy, like that to me is a compliment. Romo was a really good quarterback. If Brock Purdy ends up being as good as Tony Romo, that's a win for the 49ers. Like I know Romo has his haters. That's a win to me. It's the last pick in the draft.
Yeah, I mean, Romo definitely was not clutch. The man panicked on the line multiple times in the playoffs. But at the same time, he was, a 4,000 plus yard passer and 30 plus touchdowns, like 5 times. So the 49ers haven't seen either one of those since 2000.
That's the thing.
By the way, Purdy did go over 4,000 yards on the season. So he has the first 4,000 yard season in 23 years. I know nobody gives 2 shits about that right
now. Purdy also hit his over on passing yards for the game, which Michelle and I told you to take on Friday. The last completion, I think it was 254.5, and the last completion he had gave him 255. I'm just saying, I know nobody cares.
Oh, really?
But it was very, very close. So the post-game injuries, I'm trying to look and see if I found a list. I know Aaron Banks' injury was a toe. Trent Williams was a groin. Jalen Moore, concussion. Ambry Thomas, hamstring. And Brock's injury is officially a stinger, which is what he had last week, remember, against the Cardinals. So, again, that's not fun. Those stingers can linger a little bit. The Niners are banged up coming out of this one for sure.
Yeah, so that's 2 weeks in a row that Brock has had a stinger. They said in the broadcast it's the stinger that he had last week. That's why he was kept out. It was a 21-point game with 7.5. There was no such thing as a benching. If you're wanting to try to make that a thing, just shut the heck up.
Right.
Because it was due to the injury and the game situation that it was not worth more injury. And you could say, oh, well, he was cleared. Yeah, it's still a stinger that he's had in back-to-back weeks. You put him in and it gets hit and you go, oops, it wasn't a stinger because we just did a 30-second diagnosis on the sideline. It's not an MRI. Like, if they had put him back in this game and then he gets hit and he actually damages the shoulder, everybody would have come for Kyle Shanahan. How could you have put him back in this game? Blah, 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 blah. But now there's some people out there wanting to try to say, oh, did he get benched? No.
I agree. And this whole like, oh, did you see that seed by Sam Darnold? Look at that throw. Yes, Sam Darnold throws harder than Brock Purdy. Like, this is not new information. Again, I saw people tweeting, oh, Sam Darnold will cook in this offense. Based on what exactly? That he throws the ball harder? That he can occasionally make a pretty throw? Like, what are we talking about? So the whole thing was ridiculous. Let's get to more super chats. Obi-Wan says, I'm superstitious and kind of glad the streak is over. To win the Super Bowl, they would have had to had a 12-game winning streak, which is difficult, just probability-wise. Also, no more MVP distraction. NW, put your heads down and get the number 1 seed. I don't know what NW means, but maybe now put your heads down and get the number 1 seed.
Yeah.
And they, again, win 2 games, beat the sad sack Commanders next week in Washington, early body clock game, and beat the Rams at home to end the year. And you get the number 1 seed, and everything you want is still there. And you could just watch. Everyone's going to be trashing the 49ers this week, tomorrow especially. They're going to be trash if they stink. They're not a juggernaut, blah, blah, blah. Niners get the number 1 seed in the first round bye. Look who everyone's going to pick to win the Super Bowl. I'm just telling you now, it's going to be San Francisco. And look who Vegas will pick to win the Super Bowl. It's going to be San Francisco. So again, you're going to have to eat it this week. This week is going to suck. That's okay. Let them talk. It matters not what they say after week 16, okay? It matters what they say after week 21 or whatever the hell it is by the time you get to the Super Bowl. Just sit there and be quiet this week because your team got humbled. Last 2 weeks of the season, win the 2 games, you'll be good.
And 49er fans should be rooting for the Rams this next week. I'm trying to get the NFL standings pulled up for myself to see the exact situation. But if I'm not mistaken, the Rams could be in a situation where they've all but locked up the playoffs going into the final week.
The Rams are 8-7 right now. They're the 6th seed in the NFC.
Right. But you have the Falcons and the Saints that are 7-8, the Vikings, the Packers that are 7-8. If they were to lose, the Rams could be in a situation where they're a game up or the 2 games, but they could be a game up on those teams and the tiebreaker against them because the Rams have a good NFL. A lot of their losses are to the AFC. And that would mean they could go into the last week. There is a scenario who's going to nothing to play for. They are locked into a wild card and having to go to a division winner. And they might even look at it and go, hey, we would rather not play the 49ers. And if they lose this, we're going to be lined up to play them as the division winner.
Maybe they would. Maybe they wouldn't. I'm not going to say.
If you're the Rams, would you rather have to play like the Eagles or the 49ers? To me, you would rather avoid the 49ers, wouldn't you?
I think the Rams could easily say, hey, last time we played them in the playoffs, we beat them. So we're not scared of the big bad 49ers. Who knows? But just handle your business next week. Handle your business next week. JCG says 113 yards for Brandon Ayuk, 126 for Kittle, 103 rush yards for Christian McCaffrey. Last week, I think you were crazy if you told me the 49ers lost with those numbers. Yeah, but a lot of them were crap garbage time numbers, especially Ayuk. For him to have over 100 yards in that game, he was a ghost early on in that game. You couldn't find Brandon Ayuk in the game. Yeah, he was having some good run blocks, which is awesome. But you know what? We pay you to catch the ball and get open. And you want number 1 wide receiver money? Where the hell were you, 11? Where were you?
I'm pretty sure he had at least 60 of those yards with Sam Darnold. Because he had the big, long catch and run, and then he had more catches with Sam Darnold. So a lot of those were in kind of mop up, whatever you want to call it, soft coverage in a game, prevent crap. So I get his overall point, though. If you told me yesterday that Brandon Ayuk would go over 100, Christian McCaffrey would go over 100, and Kittle would go over 100, and the 49ers would get their asses handed to them, I would have been shocked. I would have been like, there's no way.
You would have said, how many turnovers did they have? And if I told you nothing else from the game except Brock Purdy had 4 picks, you would have said, there's no way they're winning.
You're not wrong. By the way, I see here Kyle Shanahan was asked about Purdy not going back in. He said he was asked on whether or not Brock Purdy could have gone back in. And he said, possibly. I didn't even ask.
Because he knew.
I know he stinger. Right. He had a bad stinger. I didn't want him going back in being ready for next week.
Exactly. Because that's the proper perspective that Kyle should have. Just like he said before this game, we're not changing our schedule, and everybody can get mad at me because you want to, you want to be with your family at Christmas morning or whatever, but everybody stayed at the team hotel last night. And Kyle said, if you want to be mad at somebody, be mad at me. That's fine. He was willing to take that on because it was the right decision for the team. And I agree with him not putting Brock in that game tonight. It's the right decision for the team. Why put him back in an 18-point game or 21-point game or whatever the hell it was when he's already been banged up? You got a Swiss cheese offensive line with Joe Schmo starting at right guard or right tackle or whoever. No, that's what you put Sam Darnold in there for, to take those blows and be that tackling dummy. And if he happens to make a couple passes, yay. Kyle was 100% right not to put Brock in that game.
And to our Twitter listeners and watchers, Sign Me 29 says, cheers to that, Brisk by Life. I got me some 18-year-old Jameson about liquor, so I drink it because after tonight, you deserve it. I just had to kind of help you there and go Twitch people.
Shout out to the Twitch people.
Since you had ignored them for almost 52 minutes,
Yeah, don't try to cozy up to them now. They still hate your guts, and rightfully so. Nicholas Barr says, that's what I meant, Levin. They will only remember this game if we face the Ravens in the Super Bowl. At that point, it's a bad loss, regroup, and finish. That's true. If they face any other team in the Super Bowl, I mean, it might get talked about, their record against the AFC this year, but it just doesn't matter. It's a one-game scenario. Anything can happen with any teams in one game. The Chiefs lost to the Raiders today. It's not a thing.
When the Raiders didn't go passing yard past the first quarter. Did you see that?
What was that? You cut out.
Raiders literally didn't complete 8 after the first quarter, and yet they still won.
That's rough.
I will say this. Yeah, I will say this. I would much rather have a rematch against the Ravens than the Chiefs in terms of them talking points. I don't want replays of the previous Super Bowl. No, thank you.
Wow. Yeah, that's game. No fun. Shout out to our new YouTube channel member, Pitts Racing. We appreciate you. If you want to become a YouTube channel member, it's less than $2 or $3 a month. You get custom emojis, you get membership badges, you get priority comment response. Please support the channel. Become a YouTube channel member. I will love you forever. If you want, I will give you a follow on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. Vish always makes me include that. Poor Vish is struggling to watch the game. He's on vacation in India right now. And he's like, I'm trying to watch the game. I can't see it. And then meanwhile, the Niners are getting their ass kicked.
Well, that's what he gets for going on vacation during the season. Like, who does sit in a hotel?
Right. Frank Milton says, I can't stand Kyle's sorry ass. Like, we're really going to bash Kyle Shanahan? Again, they're 11-4. Like, he's not going to win every game. Like, oh man, I get that there's anger and you're mad at the team because they make you feel this way on Christmas, and I get it. They hurt you, so you want to hurt them. But just take a deep breath. That's all I'm asking tonight. It's Christmas. Take a deep breath. It's going to be okay.
So, Brisk by Life says on Twitch that I butchered his name.
Brisby Life.
Brisby Life.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I saw earlier that he said he lives in Brisbane. I thought it's hard to follow the chat and talk. So maybe it was somebody else that said they lived in Brisbane. So I thought it was Brisk by Life because he's saying he lives in Brisbane.
Nope, you're wrong.
It's Brisbane.
You're terrible with Twitch. They hate.
Well, if it makes you feel better, you are far from alone in people who I butchered their name.
Absolutely. Sometimes I butcher the names too. I'm not going to lie. But again, as I said earlier, as we wrap it up here, you're just going to have to eat it this week. Everyone's going to talk, oh, they're not the big bad 49ers. We thought they were so good. They're not so good. And some people are going to say, see, they haven't been good all year. They're going to give you those takes. They are absolutely going to give you those takes. Brock Purdy's not good. Brock Purdy's never been any good. Jason Lockenfora tweeted, oh, Brock Purdy looks like someone who's been in a bunch of games with a big lead. And I wrote back to him, yeah, he didn't just parachute into those games in the third quarter. He was the reason why they had the big lead in those games. But just take it. Just know that is coming this week. Just let people talk. It doesn't matter what they say after week 16. It does not matter. You got 2 games left. You win them both. You get the number 1 seed, and you are the favorite to win the Super Bowl. The favorite to win the Super Bowl. Even with this loss, as bad as it was, that's what you need to focus on. Keep the main thing the main thing.
And Bender Rodriguez says, some people don't remember the Tom Sula era. And all I got to say is, yeah, that's the way we like it. I don't want to remember that era. Thank you very much.
And Sign Me 29 on Twitch. See, the Twitch audience always comes through. The last 6 straight wins the Niners had have been by at least 12 points. That's another thing. Like,
they said that was the first team ever.
Right. Like you want to hate on Kyle Shanahan. Where were you for the last 6 weeks? I didn't hear any complaints about Kyle Shanahan then. He loses 1 game and now he's trash. Like, no, I'm not going to stand for that. Matthew Rowley says, no, Kyle and Purdy are not going to win every game. Would be nice not to choke away a big game or big spot just once to lose to the Rams in week 18. Well, hold on. First of all, they've won 9 straight against the Rams in the regular season. Second of all, they had a chance to clinch a playoff spot. They won that game. They clinched a playoff spot. They had a chance to clinch the division. They won that game. They clinched the division. Let's not act like they choke away every game with stuff on the line. Like, that's just not true. Again, this loss hurts, but they still can clinch the number 1 seed. And if they do that, are you going to say that they choke away every big game?
I'm old enough to remember a game at the end of the season with the division on the line that the 49ers won by 1 inch.
Against Seattle. Or how about week 18 against the Rams to get into the playoffs in the first place on the road? They went down and they won that game. So perspective. Let's be honest and realistic about what has happened and what can still happen. I think we have to do that tonight. Shout out to Robert, new YouTube channel member. Yeah. Get the new YouTube channel member fist pump.
Watch out. You'll get a stinger in that shoulder.
I know. You know what? I have a bad shoulder anyway. I have 2 bad shoulders. So I'm trying to search quickly before any other, before we wrap up here. On his way out of the locker room, Nick Bosa went out of his way to note how much he appreciated so many 49ers fans for staying until the end. He thought the Levi atmosphere, blah, blah, blah. Who cares? Okay, great. Congratulations. I have not seen any other massive quotes. Trent Williams declined a group interview, but said, I'm good. I know you want to ask me about the injury. I'll be all right. That doesn't sound good.
Man, to me, that sounds good.
Yeah,
he said, I'll be all right. I'm good. If he was truly badly hurt, he would just avoid it.
Maybe, but he also
would have avoided the media altogether, you know.
He declined the group interview, though. He didn't want any questions, didn't want any follow-up questions.
Would you want to answer questions about this game?
Hey, that's part of the gig, man. Good, bad, or
ugly.
ugly.
You're an offensive tackle.
Oh, when you're the best offensive tackle in the league, it absolutely is. But anyway, I hear you. Deep breaths, everybody. It is okay. I think the Niners will be just fine. I still think the Niners are going to get the number 1 seed in the NFC. Now, if they don't get the number 1 seed, I'd be a little more worried, 100%. But
I mean, if they lose next week, then I'll bring the torches out.
Right.
If you lose to Washington, like,
that's fair. That is fair. But let's wait until that happens, until we get the torches and pitchforks. Keep them in the closet for now. That's all I'm saying. Thanks, everybody, for watching and listening. We appreciate you. Please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're just joining us, we do this after every single 49ers game, the Instant Reaction Podcast. We have a 5-minute 49ers news update that comes out every weekday morning to get you up to date on everything you need to know, injuries, post-game comments, interviews from radio stations, everything to keep you up to date on the Niners. And we're live on YouTube every single weekday as well. Levin, thank you for joining from a hotel on Christmas. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm sure some do. You, I'm not so much. Not so sure. You're probably sitting there going, God, can he just not show up one of these times?
Look, I'll keep all the super chats. I'm not going to lie. Jason,
I wasn't going to say the exact reason, but sure.
Jason Aponte and I will be live tomorrow on YouTube. We'll have, we'll do Bully Ball. That's our normal Tuesday show. So don't worry. We're going to be up and running.
God, that threw me off. I was like, oh, Jason's going to do Monday's show with you.
Yeah, no, it's Tuesday tomorrow. We'll be there with you. Don't worry, everybody. Happy holidays. Thank you. And Kevin with the comment of the night, the journey has some bumps, but the goal is still in sight. We'll be with you. Don't go anywhere. Like and subscribe, baby. We love you, everybody. Thank you. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. And we'll talk to you tomorrow.